fudge batch. I'm addicted to my freaking cooking. How was everybody's holiday? Let me grab my glasses so I can see what's been posted so far. Hey, how you doing, Eric? Good to see you here, Sovereign Cosmic. I have to do stuff, but I'll be monitoring the chat. Oh, thank you so much, and happy holidays to you as well. So, today I wanted to get a little bit into why we don't still live like next to, conjoined with Bigfoot. But let me go back to the beginning story first. During the time of Pangea, somewhere between 300 and 357 million years ago, I've got a video of a dogman handprint and his track and the story of his wife, who was an Oma woman, and the child that two children they bore, both hairless. They lived in that waterway between both their tribes until they were finally accepted. They weren't accepted until other children, other hairless children, began to be born in the other two groups on either side of the river. And then, according to lore, a council meeting came together between the two tribes to try to understand why hairless children were being born, for one, and what their differences were. So for many years, the tribe cooperated in taking care of the hairless children. And that went on all through the breakup of Pangea, times, actually. Um, Only in the last couple thousand years have we started to fall away from each other because of some of our bigger differences. The red bone people. They, they've never been something that we can associate with or relate to. We understand them. We know they have culture. We know they have religion. We know but they're very cannibalistic. They're very, very tribal in their existence, and they don't waver from that identity, so to speak. So some of them don't seem to have the tools, or maybe it's just the desire to interact with us. So, next story. And the reason why I'm telling you one story, then another, and then an explanation is because this is how I was taught the lore, so it makes sense to the mind. So when I was young, I had an interaction in the Sequoia National Forest where I hit a coyote over the head with a stick because I thought it was biting a child. That child turned out to be a Skookum boy. And if you refer to that, I think I did that story in a live. Go back and find that. Basically, we stayed in the area extra amount of time to help the child heal up from the bite. Internal stitches were needed and external butterflies and stitches, whatever we could do to help, the whole bit. But the lesson that I learned while camping with that family of Skookum, because they came down from the bed system their whole tribe was in, and they told us where their tribe was. But when their child was injured, they stayed closer to us in case there was an emergency, in case he pulled the stitches open or other things happened, infection, etc. It would be close to my mother who was attending to him. So while playing with him while he was healing, we were building structures together one day, and I was trying to show him how to build a Lincoln log style cabin. He didn't like the design, didn't want anything to do with it. He kept knocking it over. And I thought it was because he was younger than me and he didn't understand what I was trying to teach him, show him. So I took his hands and I gave him the sticks and I tried to have him place them in the box style shape. He got angry with me, shoved me away. I went to grab his hands again. It was not my mother who corrected me, it was his mother. And then to my mom, hey, said something to her in Abenaki, and my mom says, oh, no, no, you can't do that. He is much stronger than you. If you argue with him and he hits you, he can break you badly. Internal injuries, concussions, all kinds of stuff, because he is much stronger than you. That's actually the reason, for the most part, that our cultures don't commingle anymore. It's because we were concerned that our children would accidentally kill each other, because they had. They would get in arguments, and we humans always lost. Even the half-breeds had sometimes a real hard time trying to survive. So after centuries of interacting like that and always worrying about our children, and again, if there were arguments between adults, it never ended well for us humans. So about 2000 or so years ago, most of our interactions ended. We just kept our hunting agreements and our trade agreements. And we would allow men and women to marry back and forth, and that was still encouraged because it creates a stronger human being to be part cryptid. Gives you certain advantages that other people don't have in your community, and it strengthens your community and helps your community thrive and survive. If you've got a person who can run 85 miles in a day without breaking a sweat, you keep him as a running hunter. So from that point on, there was a tradition of, if a child in our community, our native community, our tribe, was born that was hairy, we would set him back out at the edge of or her, back out at the edge of the woods, so that the people that could best care for them would come forward and take them. The same was done from the Sabe forest people's side. If a hairless child was born, they would bring them to us, put them at the edge of our camp so we could adopt them. That was the agreement and the way that we interacted when we were colonized. We had this kind of sophisticated interaction system where we kept our distance from each other except in times of great need. Then we would help each other, but it was always known that we would separate again, because once the need was over or the emergency, whatever. And you can see an example of this with the Navajo people. They were put on, a long walk. Killed a lot of them. They starved. You understand the history. But when these people came back, the ones that survived, found that the very young and the very old that they had left behind went into the mountains and survived with their Sabe brothers. In a time of emergencies, they will come forward. But other than that, we don't cross the boundary just for safety for both of us. One, we don't want to expose them as natives. We understand their people. We understand their culture for the most part. We don't have the relationships that we used to have. Some tribes still do in certain locations. Some family groups still have generational trades going on that they've kept. That was sort of like my family's choice. We chose to keep the lore about them. We chose to keep interacting with them at the level that was appropriate in the last 150, 200 years. That's why, a little bit of interaction, you can trade with them, you can get items from them. In times of need, you can go to them for help. But for the most part, we keep that separate because we understand they can crush us. And it would be an accident. Jen and Guanch, all the time that they were on the ranch and I was around them, and that was an Oma female, was Jen, and Guanch, a big patty-like Bigfoot, they were always gentle. Even when he was running with me and the bag started to tear, the bottom started to tear out and the one side of the strap started to, my sewing didn't hold as I'd hoped. And when he grabbed me, he just kind of scooped me up underneath my rear end like you would any kid and kind of sidled me in on his hip. And that's how he ran with me. And he would still go from twos to threes while holding me. So I know that they understand their strength, but also seeing what they can do. Like the day I found Jen prying open, prying open the backside of our freezer unit. That, because I knew how big those railroad ties were. We had the great big ties that you use for trestles. They're 200 pounds, roughly 180. They're oil soaked, they're tar impregnated, they are tough, waterproof, and heavy as heck. And when I saw her just wrap her fingers around the end of one edge of one, not even deep in, she just kind of wedged the outer quarter inch, maybe half inch of her fingers back into the backside of that railroad tie and just open it like she was opening a book or opening a door. It just swung over. And so did the other three on top of it. So that was probably 400 to 600 pounds. She just moved like it was a piece of paper. So yeah, there is a serious danger with their strength. But it's not something they like having happen. Like when my grandmother's brother and her went to go collect my aunt's dress from the young urine Bigfoot that had a fascination for her scent, and my great uncle got it, or yeah, great uncle, excuse me, got into an argument. He was about 15. He got into a tug of war argument with the dress, over the dress with the Bigfoot juvenile, and he ended up with. He wasn't a small kid either. He was about 6 foot, 6'2" at 15. He was not small. He still ended up with a concussion, two cracked ribs, broken wrist, I think it was, and a strained ankle before, the juvenile got off of him because my grandmother coughed and hit him. She was hitting the Bigfoot trying to get him off because that was her childhood play friend. It's the one she grew up around. And he was already 4 or 5 foot tall by the time this incident happened. So even my uncle being taller, my great uncle being almost a foot taller, he still was not strong enough to fend this thing off once it got on him and was hitting him. So those are the reasons why we don't interact at that level. Occasionally you'll get one family group that will act with people, occasionally you'll get one individual that'll act with an individual, but that's usually a very personal thing, and it's rare, but it does happen. But they still will always keep their distance because they understand we are fragile. And according to native lore, my native lore, according to one version of our creation story, we are the offspring of an Oma woman and a dog man. The other lore of the, Lakota people that I'm from, like Papa in particular, uh, water serpent and a native woman created the first people. Either story is valid. There are probably other stories, intertribal stories, depending on the clan, etc., depending on who they married to and what kind of tribal relations were adopted. Because each tribe has their own way. They have their own ceremonies, they have their own dances, they have their own way of dressing, their own way of thinking. That's one of the reasons why we ended up learning how to trail talk to each other and hand talk. Because with so many different cultures and so many different languages, the only way we could facilitate trade was to come up with some sort of unilateral way of communicating with each other. And if that wasn't, laying stuff out on the ground, then it had to be, I see you, we come here, all the people together. You know, you gotta have some sort of communication form, some sort of language. Uh, and those were things that we also utilized with Sabe people. You can also do that with the red bone, but you got to be careful with the red bone. They always want more than you bargained for. So let me go back up. If you have any questions, please feel free. Hey, hi Lenita, how you doing? Hi Sam. Okay, Lenita, I have a picture I took of a little hairless boy I had on a that had on a fur tunic and fur boots. Poor little legs were bare. I hope he didn't get cold. Wow, that's interesting, Lenita. Did he have long hair on his head? Was it white or black? Was he tan-skinned or fair-skinned? Because there are different kinds of little people, and you may have a very interesting little person in your area. He had black hair. Ooh. It's probably one of the little white children. They are part of the, let me think. Magica? I think they're part of the Magica people. Magica, I think. Or Mimiwek. Because there's, with the little people, my grandmother said there are many types. Regionally, you'll come across the Mimiwagon and etc., but each of those people might be slightly different. The Mimiwagon are all hairy, completely hairy, but the Mimiwigich are more like humans. They have black hair and they wear furs typically. Will have little spears. Um, you get into the Moonite people. They'll have blue eyes. They'll have tan skin, fair hair, white hair. They'll also wear furs, and they're little tiny. They're only 18 inches tall, 22 inches tall. Most of the American little people, though, range between 18 and about 3 foot. Most of them. And there are, I think, 16 or maybe 20 different little tribes of them across the United States that my grandmother was aware of in her lore. So there's quite a bit of research that could be done just on the little people. I mean, I got really lucky this last summer and I found an all green, little pointy ear guy, no long nose. If he's got a long nose, he's a Mimiwagon. If he's got a normal face but big ears and all green, he's a Weebila. And they are considered forest spirits. They take care of the woods. They assist mankind. They take care of children who are lost in the woods too. They'll take them to Bigfoot or they will take care of them themselves, according to lore. But, you know, some of them don't do that. Some of them will eat you. He was human size. Interesting. That might be actually a human child. Because there were also quite a few native tribes that walked off with, like, you know, our forest brothers in the mid-1800s after the Indian Removal Act was put into effect. A great surge, great number of tribal people walked off into the wilds with their forest brothers between about 1838 and roughly 1858, 64, somewhere in there, according to my native grandmother. It became the thing to do if you did not want to surrender. To this day, I know where there is one Native American tribe that is still hidden. My mother took me to the location. I'm sorry. I've been having a serious allergy issue because I ended up allergic to the new gloves at work. Some sort of a latex issue, so I've been all screwed up the last couple days. But Uh, that was something that my grandmother spoke of, was how many of the tribal people went away. Um, and my mom, when I was a teenager, she took me to a location, a massive cave, an underground cave, that has a hidden stone doorway that you can go through to get in and out of it. And it's not where the giants are. It's a different cave system. But I got to see one of the tribal people from there, and he was dressed. He had long black hair. He wore just a simple headband. He had a bag over his shoulder, like a bandolier, like a skin bag, and he wore just like fur boots or shoes and a skin front and back for loincloth. His hair wasn't braided, and he had a spear. The spear point on it looked very much like a Clovis point, a really ancient style point. And I have known of several other people who have had sightings in the same area of that cave and described seeing similar people. So you might have a residual tribe somewhere in the area that you're not aware of, Lenita. So please don't expose them. If they are there, they're there because they don't want to be part of this culture. Hello, everyone. Glad you're all here. Seems like, yeah, it's very possible that he was Haka. Sadio, thank you for talking to us. Yeah, you're welcome. No need for apologies. Yeah, thanks. Appreciate that. Yeah, I've ended up with blisters on my hands from the gloves, and my throat's been sore, and I'm not happy. Northwest Native Tracker, have I ever been in the caves of the Northern California lava beds? Yeah, I've been around them. I don't go into caves typically. I was in one. My mom took me into one ice cave over in Central Oregon to prove a point to me, because it's got a severe drop off. The dangers of going into caves. You know, you can be walking along on what you think is a solid floor, and you might have a open gap, 10 foot with a 100-foot drop. It's the only cave I've actually ever been in, other than the cave that I lived in while I was on my turnout, but that was just a blowhole cave. So no, I don't typically go into caves because a lot of my lore suggests there are cryptids in caves that you don't want to find. And I take my grandmother's lore to heart, and I don't go into caves. I've also been up to the lava bed caves here in Oregon off 242. You know, looking at the entrance, looking at petroglyphs, if there are any there. There are a few areas up here in the northwest that have petroglyphs that people aren't aware of. There's a couple of locations I need to go and probably document and let the tribe know that they're still there. Because I can have confirmed through my brother there's a couple of the petroglyph sites that my mom told me about that the tribes aren't even aware of, so that I need to let them know so they can document them and protect them. Ah, Eric. My name bites anything. Can I speak about it? Yes. I earned that name the hard way. That's my adult name. Because Jin Jin, when she adopted me, she named me Nimiwegi Wemet, which means seize your house. So, in the Umpqua, there was a group of Yaren. I discovered that there was somebody within the local community, human community, that was associating with one of the urine people, and that she was basically informing on the group in a detrimental way. Um, it was causing the rangers up there to act in an inappropriate way towards them. And they were cutting out fruit trees that had always been there. They started poisoning out certain food plants, etc., because this neighbor was calling on them, basically, I guess, from what I can understand. So I figured out what was going on. I couldn't figure out which individual in the group was being the one interacting with the human that wasn't acting well. I finally heard the individual's voice one day while I was in the group's area. So I called the individual out on who she'd been talking to, the human, and why her family was going through such detrimental times in that location, why their plants were being destroyed, why were they being attacked, etc. Some of the other issues up there. And I told her there was no reason to continue interacting with a bad person, and I destroyed something of theirs actually, in order to prove the point that if you keep up interacting with bad people, only bad things will come to you. During that attack, I almost got killed. I got rushed at. I didn't move. I didn't budge. I went to the creek. I got in the creek. I grabbed a pair of rocks because I stood my ground. I knew I'd probably die, but I'd clobber him first. So that individual's little brother shook a bush next to me after whistling and pointing for me to leave. So I finally left. I made my apologies. Told him I would pay any fine or fee necessary, but that I would fight anything and anybody to protect them. And I would not stand down, no matter what came to attack. I didn't know for probably 3-4 months that earned me the nickname Bites Anything. Next time I went out, went and visited one of the Mongolian songs I've been singing, playing on my radio and singing with, and I always liked. It's Wolf Totem by The Who. Well, one of the Yaren men was singing the song, and then I hear his wife's the female peace chief, the other woman's voice that I heard the day I accused her sister. I didn't realize I was accusing the peace chief's sister of dastardly deeds against them. She called to her husband. Who is it? He looks down. I could see him at the top of the ridgeline. He nods at me. He says, Fights Anything's come to visit. That's how I knew I'd earned a new name. Oh yeah, definitely unreal. I've been last couple days since I've realized this stuff's going ballistic on me. I'm just not doing a whole lot. Merry Christmas, everybody, and thank you so much for all of your wonderful comments. I'm so happy you guys enjoy my content and like what I produce on my channel. I know I'm not big frills. Uh, to me, the information is more important than any show that I could put on. So, they're basics. Besides, it's more more personable, in my opinion, to sit down and have a conversation with somebody than to preach at them. I know some of the East and Southern, in particular, that's where I'm from. Ah, okay. That makes sense, Unreal. Okay, Melissa, I have a question. Steve Isdall is a hunter that has a YouTube channel, and he reads emails from people who've had encounters with these people. He's a good man, does not hunt these creatures. Yeah, I'm sure he doesn't. I'm sure that he has enough tribal people up there around him that have made him aware. And I think he's had several face-to-face encounters with them. I don't think he would ever be foolish enough to try to shoot one. At least I hope not. And besides, he doesn't impress me as that kind of an individual. Ah, hey Jay. Or, yeah, Jay. Welcome. Okay. Unreal. Seems these Bigfoot beings would rather love us rather than be hostile. Yeah, I mean, for all of these researchers that go out in the field, they get a few pine cones or rock tossed at them and they think that's aggression. No. That is, picture yourself, if you've ever built a fort, you've ever been a kid, and you've ever had a war over a fort, a dirt clod fight with your cousins, your next door neighbor's kids, and you're fighting over who gets to keep the fort. That's about the extent of it. They're just trying to push you away. You're just too close. If they were really aggressive, they'd probably clobber you with them. Like, hit you in the head. Because some of their hunting tactics, especially the younger ones, will take, rocks and use a rock to knock a bird, knock a rabbit. Part of my hunting tactics before I made a bow and arrow for myself, hit them with a rock. If you've got good aim, you can take a duck or a rabbit down if you've got the, good sized skipping rock. And you can lead them just enough. And with a skipping rock, hey, you can catch that rabbit on the bounce. Because flat rocks still bounce off hard ground. Especially if it's clay packed like Central Oregon. So you could still clobber things with a rock. If they were really being aggressive, they would be trying to hurt you with the rock, not just warn you out of the area. In all the times that I've been around them, there have only been a very few times that either I knew I was in a group I shouldn't be around, which I had an incident like this. That was last summer. Went into woods off of Fire Clay Road area down south of Cottage Grove. There's a very aggressive group up there. It does not like people. I went up into close to, I guess, something that was important to them. Got a real uneasy feeling. Realized there was a lot of stuff blocking the roadway up there. Mountain road, meaning, forestry road, big gravel road. So I turned around, boonied. And I got down to the bottom of that hillside, probably 2-3 miles. And they followed. They pounded on wood. They freaked the heck out. They made a lot of sounds of like, well, what the heck are you doing here? Very similar to the Ron Moorhead sounds. And I'm like, oh God, I've gotten into the wrong area. That was that one clip where you could hear 3 knocks. That was the final end of it. They'd been, phones don't always come on when you want them to, and if you aren't thinking about it, I wasn't. I got out of my vehicle and I was, looking and listening, and then I realized, God, I should probably record this. Because, once they finally calmed down and I had made a call, bam, 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 human, identified myself, brand, and then their response became a little different. They let me know how many were in their group. So I don't know if they are aggressive because they are defensive, meaning they might be a group of outcasts living together, shunned individuals, potentially, or if they've had some sort of bad interaction with people that has put them on edge towards people. I don't know. Could be either. Uh, only if I went back up there to try to figure out more of it would I ever maybe understand it. Oh yeah, I've been drinking my water. Wow, that's awesome. Out in those forests, that had to have been quite an experience. Okay, well, so my question is, every day uh, in his barn where horses are kept, he has been receiving one eagle feather every day. Does this have a meaning? Well, feathers are considered prayers. Most likely, he is being prayed for by a cryptid that's leaving him the prayer feather. Maybe he's discerned something in him that suggests the man should go to powwow, be a medicine person, or maybe they consider him an honorable individual that's a strong fighter. Strong fighters are adorned. So my guess is they're probably prayers for his well-being. The rest of the meanings are supposed. Who knows why? But I do know it's a prayer. Okay. Oh, I am in Oregon. I live in Oregon, Northwest. Um, I've lived up in Canada, Washington, Oregon, California, and I'm aware of all the cryptids throughout the West Coast, for the most part, at least the ones I was taught about. I'm sure there's a whole bunch I don't know anything about, but I do know quite a few locations and different cryptids in them, at least where I've been shown. Okay, Unreal, Northwest Tracker, I know. Bigfoot is more known in the Northwest, of course. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. What I saw on you. There are actually quite a few known places by tribal lore. The Mogollon Rim, for one. There were tons of cryptids known to be in that area, including the Mogollon Man, which is a wild man. I think you got your, other tribes up there. And there are even a couple of human tribes along that ridge line, according to my native grandmother. Uh, no. No, Diddy. Not a skinwalker. Alright, Diddy. Perhaps you should go read the description on my channel. Nice, James. Sweet tea is yummy. Yeah, I'm part of My ancestry's got 3 different native tribes. I'm Maya, Nootka, and Hunkpapa. And a lot of my lore comes from the Hunkpapa, some of it is from the Nootka, and some is from the Maya. Yeah, but it's I don't have another Hyoka to take my place within my family that's had enough time to train. There is one other individual that could have been trained, but she's too old now. And she wouldn't live long enough past my years anyway. And some of the places I can't even take her because she couldn't get there. She wouldn't be able to climb there. Katana, katana. Oh, katanawaha. Katanawaha. My grandmother only ever spoke words to me once. Katanawaha does sound familiar, but I'm going to have to think about what it might mean. See, I never got to learn, except from Bigfoot, any of the languages because it was still illegal for Native Americans to speak their own languages when I was a child. So my grandmother would always either teach me in English the stories, or if she gave me a name or a word, she would only say it once, and then I was obliged to remember it. Awesome, Unreal. Cool. Seminole, huh? Pleased to meet you. You might know Kua. Kua Nidaba. Or Kwe, another way of saying it. You had a Bigfoot say that to you once. Might be tribal name. Let me do some research on that. Katawahana. Almost sounds Polynesian. Huh. Well, I do know some of the tribes do speak some rather unusual languages. Like one of the groups here, the speaks Tagalog. So, and then there's also some Peshat speakers somewhere in this area because I'll find Peshat writing. Occasionally you'll hear a Peshat word like, what was the one word? There were a couple that I heard in Peshat. Oh well, I can't think of it right now. My mind is elsewhere. It's been saturated on good food and too much fun. Well, see if I can figure that out for you. And I'll maybe try to tell you next live, or maybe try to add it to a language post. That's rare, though it has been reported mostly just a few words at the most. Yeah, if you are interested in trying to understand what their family group names are or what they call themselves, that is one word that they'll often be willing to tell you. So if you're a researcher and you're trying to understand a tribe or people or what they call themselves, ask them what they call themselves as a group. What's your group call themselves? What's your tribe call you? What's your name? And typically they will tell you. Sometimes it is a last name, like a surname. Other times it's a tribal name. I've gotten mostly surnames in this valley. A couple of tribal names, like Memoegon, or not Memoegon, that's little people. Waganagan? Waganagan, an old tribal name, Waganagan. Um, so occasionally you'll get a tribal name, especially if there might be a human group with them. They'll usually retain the tribal name. Otherwise, you'll get a last name, typically. So you might get an unusual, like, there's a group here that has a Persian last name of Human. That was a mind blower. They had to tell me twice before I took it to heart that was really what they called themselves. And then I had to do some research to find out it was a Persian last name and not just a name of us. Yay, I didn't know Human was a Persian last name. Means of the valley or of the sandland, something like that. And then, let's see, I don't know, I've got Khan, Mnong, because Jen Jen's last name was Mnong. Uncle Ong, you could consider his last name a surname. The weird thing is when you start researching their last names, you'll either get names out of, like, the most unexpected places. The fjords of Finland, Persia. You'll also get names that are Polynesian, occasionally, and then the weird Mongolian occasional name. And if you start doing research, you'll find that most of the names that they utilize as their last names are on the lower end of surnames on the planet as a whole. Maybe only 300 or 400 people will have the same last name, or the last name will be completely died out as a modern human name, but still in our records. Some of them will have a hundred, some will have a couple thousand people that still have the same last name. I have not found any name that's like a major name that's a surviving name in this area that's not on the low end of human names, like it's a dying out name. Again, that's another suggestion that they are retaining names from incredibly ancient times, if that's the case. Meaning that they're probably the last people on the planet that still have those names, other than the few hairless family members that they are not even able to associate with. Again, that also might suggest that the lore that we supposedly came from them as a sport species that could reproduce, that's potential. If we share the same last name, and modern theory tells you surnames in Europe didn't happen till after the plague. Funny, the plague happened what in 1380, 1400s, but Genghis Khan had a last name and he was alive in 1320, 1250. So last names were prevalent, at least in Asia, far before the plague. Also, when you take a look at Egyptian hieroglyphs, their first and last names. So I think there's a piece of mythology there, maybe trying to hide some facts. Roadblock. That sounds very Nordic. I've asked names, I only get answers when dreamwalking. I can't remember when I wake up. Ooh, hey, Phil, keep yourself a dream journal. My mom, when she would, as she said, spirit walk, uh, go in a dream to go talk to her Bigfoot friends, she started keeping a journal because it's sometimes really hard to retain what's told to you in a dream. So when you wake up from a dream that you know has been a good conversation or prophetic, write down the last thing you can remember. Whatever the tail end of the dream was, or if you can remember the beginning of it, some little clip in it, the end of it, even just the emotion that you felt when you woke up from the dream, the impression you had. The next night, read what you wrote, ask in your mind to retain the dream when you go to talk. As you note each night and remind yourself it will come through, your dreams will clarify, and that interaction will become sharp and clear and clean. Yeah, some of them are pretty telepathic, supposedly. And it might be possible. I don't put anything on the outskirts of possibility. It's just how did it occur? What's the function? Why does it occur? Can it be explained? Can it be documented? Okay, unreal. I think they use sign language to a certain extent as well, according to the reports at some points, and gesture. Yep, they actually use native hand talking. It's American Indian form of sign language. So, like if you want to say moose, moose, the antler sits out here. You represent the moose this way. If you want to say buffalo, it's here because buffalo's horn moves inward. Deer, different symbol. Fork, antelope, etc. You want to say blanket, make the symbol like you're pulling a blanket around you. You want to say you're hungry and you're really hungry. You're so hungry your throat's slit. Your mouth thinks your throat's slit. Your stomach thinks your mouth has no connection to it to feed it. So really hungry is a slit throat. Means that your stomach is got pain. Um, when you're showing movement, walking, riding, you put your two fingers over like your hand, show a mounted person on a horse. Those are all just symbols, ways of talking. That was one of our communication forms when trying to trade with each other. It's easier to say, I come from somewhere and I go somewhere with just a simple, sort of like saying one night compared to one day. One night's just the moon, one day is the whole sun going over. Just simple language that communicates a lot. We're here, see everything around us, ground's under us. Simple, simple language. It's the easiest way to communicate. You can show somebody very easily you want something with a hand gesture, or you can direct them very easily. And you don't have to speak, you don't have to know their language. You can point. They know where you point, there's something. So it's the easiest way of communicating. I am sure it was very eye-opening. Ah, there was a report of a werewolf sighting where it was saying a word that sounded like Gadar. Huh. Interesting. Start looking these words up. even if you go at it phonetically, there's a good chance you'll be able to find a word or find something similar. Um, when I hear them talking in the woods, and if I don't recognize language or I don't recognize what's being said, because I don't always know what they're speaking. I know a little bit of Chinese, I know a little bit of Tagalog, a little bit of Abenaki, a little bit of Japanese, that sort of thing. So, some of it I can identify. But when I run across something I can't identify, I'll write down what I think I heard, and then I'll start looking. Can I find a word that sounds like that? What language does it belong to? What does it mean? Then I take what I think that word is and I go back out to where I heard that individual say the word, and I will typically say back what I learned. I'll say the word and I'll ask, is that what this means? You said so and so, does it mean this? And usually you'll get a tap or a every once in a while from the woods. Or occasionally I've gotten a correction. Yeah, I've been told, nah, a different word. Yeah, the word be said to me again so I hear it clearer. And then I gotta go back and do more research. So check, just do word search. You know, try to look it up phonetically spelled, see if you find anything. Believe it or not, you will find stuff. And a lot of times it'll either be a Native American language or it'll be a phrase from an Asiatic language or a word from an Asiatic language. And 9 times out of 10, it fits in place for the circumstance that was going on at the time. Oh, so I've experienced the same thing. Dream times. Yep. Sweetie, morbid bear. Sounds like Aoyo. Was a name I was told when asked. One up in the Sierras. Aoyo. Interesting. I have to look it up. Okay. Oh. Aeho. Aeo. Aeo. Okay. Hmm. Music manic? What are you? Are you saying you are a witch? Okay, Phil, I know you are telling the truth. They do not psycho dream, adventure with them. They interact that way. Yeah. Yeah, I've had them interact that way with me too. It's, be aware though. If you start dream venture with these guys, if you got one that's pissed off at you and he figures out he can get into your dreams and screw with you, there's a chance he will. So be forewarned, you might end up with a nightmare here or there. Sorry. It does happen though. Okay. Okay, well. Alright guys, well, if you got any questions, we can discuss them. Otherwise, I think you kind of have a better understanding of why they avoid us and what our old ways used to be. Of course, we don't interact and haven't interacted in a marriage type way with these people for a couple of generations now, for the most part. I mean, every once in a while you hear a modern story of an attempted abduction or maybe a person who's had a hairy child. because there was one in the last, 50 years that I'm aware of. Because I remember hearing articles and seeing information about that individual's experience. So it's not a common thing anymore. Consequently, if they have suffered genetically from that loss of genetic interaction, some groups might also be dying out. They might be going extinct. And the only reason why I say that might be a possibility is because if we are part of their genetic makeup, and now they're starting to exemplify some of the same odd deformities that we get. Like I saw a almost in Russia that looked like he had been born with no legs. I don't think he lost his legs. It didn't look like he lost his legs. To me, it looked like he had underdeveloped hip bones and he probably was born without legs. When a species starts experiencing birth defects, it's typically because there's genetic bottleneck. Uh, we're creating a plethora of genes that create more issues because we aren't being aware that our genetics are, you know, getting goofy. Might be happening for them too. I mean, it happens in our cultures around the world, especially depending on how much inbreeding there is in a particular culture. The more inbreeding there is, the more chance there are for deformities of all kinds and genetic drift in ways that you don't want to deal with. And I don't know how they deal with that in their cultures. I don't I don't think I don't think it occurs very often yet in their cultures because I haven't seen a lot of it. At least we don't have any kind of visual records of it. But the fact that we do have a few recordings of things that just don't look right, um, maybe they're having some issues that way. You know, there are other factors out there that we also don't know about. You know, we don't know what they might be living around still. In some areas, these cryptids are too deep into the woods, into places that we don't even go. Probably couldn't get there without a rope and a bunch of assistants. So keep in mind that there might be other things out in those woods that might cause some issues too. And there's plenty of lore that suggests there's plenty of other things out in the woods and the world in general. Because it's not just this continent that experienced cryptids. Uh, Jizzle, I wish we could be more connected with them still and have balance between us in our lives. It would be possible, but there would have to be an explicit understanding that we respect them. And I don't know as everybody in our culture has that ability. The reason why I say that was because during my turnout, I caught a couple of teenagers in the area I was in, and they were shooting at one of the cryptids. I went over and I confronted them. I snuck up on them and told them not to do that they were shooting at a human being. They didn't like my answer. So there's going to be the people in our community that will cause bad relations because of their own bad behavior. That's the only major issue I see. Other than that, I don't think that the cryptids would really care. I think they would be just as happy to have us there as not, as long as we aren't too intrusive on them. I mean, every researcher that's gone out there has come back. I've walked into some situations that If I were in the middle of a chimpanzee group or a group of baboons, I probably would not have walked back out of, but did fine in because they're more docile than that. Even when they are aggressive, they're still just telling you to go away. They're not trying to eat you, typically. Typically. Yeah, that's true, Phil. Attitude is everything. I think there's a great many people that would just fine with knowing that cryptids exist. I'm sure that there would be quite a tourist industry for anybody who wanted to go and take a look at one if they were in an area where they could, because I'm sure it would become a thing. But then you're going to get the dummy that wants to, go stand next to the buffalo and get a picture. Or, shoot at him or throw something at him or try to harass him, and then that would be a no-go. Besides, if they are actually human beings, or cake human beings, don't be throwing stuff at caveman. They will not like it. Besides, they would be, they would be due more respect if they're cavemen than to try to treat them like an animal. And unfortunately, we still, because they're hair covered, think they're just animals. So let me tell you about two other oddities that happened this last week. I mean, the trading's been going really well. I did get a little rock today left on the back porch. Nothing carved on it, just a stone. Probably the individual's marker saying, yeah, okay, I'm here. But Tuesday this last week, before Christmas, there were a couple of unusual things that occurred in the hillsides and off to the west of here. I heard three different calls, all within probably 30 seconds of each other, and they were spread out probably a good half to three-quarters of a mile apart. So there was a very human caveman sounding holler like, yelp! And then I heard another, yelp! From off on the other side, further east. And then a dog howl. Big dog, not a little one. That was before I went to work, because I didn't go to, I didn't have to work both my jobs that night. I only have one location that I work in. I don't go to that job until about 10 o'clock. So I heard that around 10 o'clock before I went to work. I went to work late that night. Went to work. As I'm departing work at about 1 in the morning, I think it was, I get at the end of the field of the building that I finished cleaning, I get an individual running up, hunched over along the field edge and down the sidewalk. And then the individual realizes my vehicle is running because I just turned it on to warm it up to leave. It pops behind a tree, tries to stand next to the tree. And I'm like, okay, I've seen that a couple times before, but I hadn't thought about it before. Didn't put it together over the summer. And then maybe a minute goes by. Here comes another individual, slightly larger, running very similarly, hunched a little bit. And then he comes right up to the tree where the other individual was. And you can see they're communicating back and forth because you can tell they're turned to face each other. And then they both try to hide from a car because they like squinch together and just like meld around the bottom of that tree as a vehicle went by. I don't think the individual saw them. And then they both took off across the road and went down into the gully and got into the stream bed and traversed down the stream bed instead of on the sidewalk. Neither one of those individuals looked like they were wearing clothing. They looked like they were hairy. They both looked like they were, oh, they were both male. Um, Probably 6 foot, maybe 7 foot was the bigger individual, as far as I could tell. Because they were hunched. They were running like Johnny Weissmuller used to run. He'd hunch down when he was in his Olympic run, like a Native American. You ground run, you bend your back and you take off. They were running like that. So that's a natural way of running. That is the way a normal person runs without any training, without being taught to lean upright when you run. You will automatically run hunched. I ran for many years as a child, hunched, because my parents never corrected me. I didn't learn to run upright until I went to school. And then the teacher said, stand up when you're running. Oh, okay. I didn't know you could do that because I never had. So it makes me wonder, because I know people have been chased down that bike path a couple of times over this last summer by something that looks like a juvenile squatch. I've heard calls in that area. I've gotten ground owls, like 400-pound ground owls, in that gully down in the stream bed. So I'm pretty sure there's cryptids out there by work, and that's between the hill point here and the next mountain over to the east. So I'm working at this point just a few blocks away from where I'm at. So it would be within the same territory area potentially as the cryptids, that I'm trading with, maybe even the ones that are coming down off the hillside going through the neighborhood. Regardless, they're not hurting anybody or anything, they're just doing their thing. And even the individuals that they're screwing with, I think it's probably just juveniles being, brats. Uh, I've been chased on bicycle trails around here at night back in the 80s by juvenile Bigfoot being turkeys. They're just trying to harass you. They're just bugging you. They don't mean you any harm. They're just trying to scare you. And it works. It scares you. Pretty good. Until you face them and you tell them, don't do that. Somebody will take offense to that and then you'll get shot. Don't be dumb. And then they'll usually stop fucking chasing you. But if you, panic and run and scare, and they'll get a big laugh out of that like any teenager. Yeah, that's very true. Shizzle. I just love being connected with nature and learning from it and everything it brings to offer. It's sad that we as people are losing touch with what we've come from. Yeah, I feel that. The more we get away from understanding the world around us, the less we're going to care for it. Unfortunately. Sounds like you got some more interesting encounters up there, Phil. I'm sorry I haven't been able to answer your emails recently. I still have to figure out how to get back into my email account. Yeah, they usually don't like you looking at them through a scope. Hey Ben, how you doing? Oh, good, Phil. I'm glad that they're giving you some answers. Cosmic's in here, kind of hanging in the background. Okay, unreal. Do you have venomous caterpillars with hairy spines all over their body? There. Just wondering because we have them here. We actually have, unreal, a caterpillar called the puss caterpillar. It's about, yeah, 2 inches long, about as big around as your pinky finger, typically covered in bright gold, beautiful, fuzzy hair. Don't touch it. It carries a neurotoxin that can kill you. I know how to touch one, because Bigfoot showed me how. But you gotta be really, really careful. So don't do it. And I have managed to mess with one. Once. I'm probably never going to do it again because it was a Bigfoot showing me how to do it. I trusted her, and it wasn't Jen Jen, it was the old woman I had associated with. But yeah, we do have a puss caterpillar up here, and it is deadly poisonous. Who, me? Yeah, I happen to be. Why? You'd have to be very interested in going out and hanging out with Bigfoot all the time. Okay. Valentine, my maid hiking in the 90s. Briefly saw 3 foot tall, black or short haired bipedal being that head shape was like an otter. Are you like? Wow, you could very well have Winnegapi in your area. Winnegapi. I think there's another name for the Winnegapi. We call them a Winnegapi here, but we have what's an archaic. We have an archaic otter here, not an otter person. There's up north in Alaska and back east, there were stories of otter people that were bipedal. I can't remember if they're also called the Winnegapi or if they have a slightly different tribal name. You okay, baby? You choking on something? What's going on? What happened? What you got going on, baby? Need to go out? All right? Sorry. Oh, my goodness. So, I'm not sure if the name is different. But yes, there is lore about otter people. There's also lore about porcupine people, mole people, bear people, badger people. Other ones I can keep, ones like I have on the top of my head. But there are quite a few different kinds of species of cryptids other than just Bigfoot out there. And your native lore in your area is going to be your best guide to what lives in your area, because lore preserves what we interact with and what we had interacted with and what we knew to be around us. So check on your native lore to determine what's in your area cryptid wise. That's my best advice to you. It's always worked for me. That's how my grandmother taught me. That each tribe had its lore about the specific cryptids that were around them and that they associated with. Oh, okay, Phil. No worries. I know you've got kind of a stable situation with the cryptids in your area. It's not that these caterpillars sting, it's that the hairs on the puss caterpillar actually have a neurotoxin that's excreted along the length of them. Eric. Feral cats in the woods. Do Sabe ever adopt pets? Cats. Pets. Do some groups use them as meals? Um, Funny you should ask that question. A couple of years ago, friends of mine were living down in Elkton, Oregon, and I noticed a bunch of cats showing up down in their area. Like they'd be 20, 30, 40 times 50 cats just show up out of the blue. They'd live around the guy's property for a bit, and then they'd all disappear in like a week or two. And I started comparing the cats I was seeing in where he was living to the missing animal signs here in Eugene. There were a percentage of those cats that were on the, signs. My guess was, because I know that the property that my friend was living on down there is very close to an ancient trading pathway, an ancient trading trail. My guess is they were either capturing live food and bartering over it and trading it off, which is not normal, or they were taking people's pets to rehome them and give them to Bigfoot children. Um, I have seen a variety of different types of pets around different cryptid groups. Anything from domesticated dogs. I have seen one case of where a young cryptid boy had a cat and he had stolen it from somebody. So there's potentially pet trading going on with some of these groups. Not food, just pet trading. I've also seen muskrats, raccoons, um, bobcats, cougar cubs, all used as pets. I've got pictures of some of them as pets. Like I've got domesticated dogs next to cryptids more than one time. I found that instance happening. Somewhere I have that night clip from my trail camera where a Bigfoot child dropped a kitten over the fence to trigger my camera. And then you could see his eyes um, behind the slats in the fence and the cat coming up to the freaking trail camera. So there's that incident, and I do have another picture of a pair of young Bigfoot up in a tree stand, probably 200 feet off the ground, and they have pet muskrats with them in the tree stand. So there's quite a bit of evidence that I've noticed, that I've seen over the years, that suggest they will keep domestic animals and wild animals as pets from time to time. They will also nurse injured animals and re-release them. Jen with the flying squirrel. When it injured itself, she nursed it, fed it, would even chew nuts for it, give it nuts until it was healed, and then she let it, go back to the trees. And she also corrected me when I tried to call the flying squirrel to me, or if I was being too overly friendly with it. She did not want it to become domesticated. She wanted it to remain wild, and she understood the difference. Oh, hybrid. I go by a Wisa. Do they have healing powers? Yeah, I believe that they do. I think they can heal. Uh, I know that my Guanche father was able to remove tick larvae from my body by using his infrasound. Made me feel like my entire body was a bowl of jello, including my bones when he hit me with it, because my skull, my skeleton, my organs inside my body, and my skin all felt that they were all shaking at different levels at the same time. That was like nothing I've ever experienced, and it also made me immediately puke. It made me sick as a dog for a second. But it also got rid of the tick larvae. You know, they started piling out of my body the following day. So I know their infrasound can heal. I'm sure that their prayers can also heal. Native prayers can heal. And yeah, there's a possibility of elk people, deer people, all kinds of unusual cryptids. In this valley alone, I found what looks like a goat person, and I found something that looks kind of like a minotaur. I haven't been able to get close to that minotaur thing enough yet. Maybe with my new lens, scope, and distance, I can maybe get a picture of him, because he's got big freaking cow-looking horns on his head. Um, I mean, we have stories of the Wendigo. It has deer horns on its head in some variations. In some stories, it's got a deer-type skull, along with deer antlers. In other versions of the story, it's just a decaying person that eats people. So it depends on the lore. So each, like I said, tribal areas, whatever the tribal people in that area have lore about, that's probably the cryptids they interacted with the most or that they knew of the most. And they'll have the most information about the ones that they've been around, you know, the ones that they're aware of. We have Phil, we have brown recluse here, the only poisonous thing unless you count hornets. Ooh, I wish Oregon was that nice. Yeah, we've got brown recluse, black widow, hobo spider. Been bit by a hobo spider. Got a scar from the freaking bite. And a pink spot in the middle of my, right there. That's a hobo spider bite mark. Let's see, we've got rattlesnakes, clear scorpions, deadliest scorpion in the world. Little tiny guys are only about that big. They love to live under the moss. If you are a free climber, be aware. Southern Oregon around Roseburg got a ton of those little guys. Be careful. Yeah, we got a lot of poison stuff here. We got that puss caterpillar. We've got a black and red bird. I can't remember the name of it. It's got poisonous feathers on it. Seen one of those things here recently. A lot of stuff that's poisonous seems to like to come here, or is here. Thank God we're not like Australia, or, you know, Texas, Arizona, New Mexico, with some of the stuff they've got down there. But we've got plenty. We've got enough. Between the scorpions, rattlesnakes, and the other bizarre poisonous stuff here, and just the plants that are poisonous here. Ugh. You know, we've got cowberry plants here still. Those will, you pinprick yourself with one of those things, you probably croak and give you a heart attack. And we, you know, got a lot of that kind of stuff still around in some of our deeper forests. Ah, the maze. What cryptid do you know of that makes and gives wreaths? Well, you'd be very lucky if you get a wreath from one. Uh, I know that mountain boogers will make wreaths. Trying to remember, grandmother said there were a couple of different tribal people, cryptid people, types of Bigfoot that made wreaths. I know that the mountain boogers are one. I think she said the wood boogers also do it. So the the seven shoot, the beast of seven shoots is a mountain booger. They make wreaths. Um, the little brown looking Bigfoot that have almost raccoon or possum like ears, they're a wood booger. They also make wreaths. Janosqua are also said to make wreaths. think there are a couple more tribes, but those are the ones off the top of my head, different species that I know that make wreaths. It's usually the ones that are have the rule you can't look at them, makes the wreath. Okay, Ben. I was wondering if I should put a tree that is Prinkana next to the tray goods to acknowledge the one they play. So that's a good idea. Yeah, I would try that. See if you can get him to start trading with you. Yeah, I'd try that. John Valentine, thank you. It was probably Olympics and not Rainier, so primordial otter. It could be. The Willamette River still has giant otter in it. You don't see them very often. They're very, very subtle where they move. You have to kind of know where they're at. I did run across one sleep spot because they will have a tendency to sleep right next to the river. They'll curl up in a big ball. And I found where he was sleeping because I could still see his fur print and his body print in a circle on the ground. And he's probably a good 5, 6 foot across, curled up. But that was a couple of years ago. It was the last time I've seen one in this area. So you don't see them very often, but they do traverse these waterways. And they will go up side rivers and side streams. Anything that's deep enough for them to get up. So you might run into an otter person. Or an otter, giant otter, ancient otter. I believe that they might, Phil. At least the stories, like the bear man stories, the badger man stories, mole man, otter man stories like that, they all seem to have similar abilities and traits, at least what lore says about them. Yikes, diamondbacks, yikes, no thanks. I run across a sidewinder once in my life, and I don't ever want to see another thing like it. Ugh, they move way too quick across the goddamn sand. I don't think they would consider you as a pet, Phil. And more like they're trying to figure out if you're somebody they can trade with or rely on. Or, they can trust with telling stories to and giving lore to. Well, yeah, they're trying to discern whether or not you're a good person, Phil. I mean, every time you go into the woods with them, you're going to be under their scrutiny. And if they've gotten to a point where they've decided that you're worth their scrutiny, then they'll probably come and really take a look at you. Just so I feel the hairy people are able to communicate with other animals and use them as eyes for them, just from what I've seen personally. I was actually there's a way of knowing and understanding that behavior. Native hunters, when you become a good hunter and you're able to find your quarry with regularity, even in bad times, it's said that you're able to see through the eyes of your prey. So that's potentially what's going on there. It's a practiced way of knowing where your game is. So if you've gone hunting and you can't find any game for 2, 3 days, you know you're going to need game soon, but you haven't found any ground sign, you haven't found anything in the area, you don't know where to go, you can't find them. You ask the Creator for a dream. Dream tells you exactly where they're going to be the following day. You go there, and if you go where the Creator tells you they're going to be, foraging in the morning, you'll find the whole herd of them. So yes, that sort of interaction is something that is known as hunting medicine. Just as a native healer will use prayer to heal a body, a native hunter will use a dream to find game. And you're seeing it before you experience it. You always see the following day the night before in your dreams. So how Creator also protects you. Creator will show you where you could be hurt, will warn you where you could be hurt. If you still choose to take that path, you didn't heed his warning. If you choose to alter your path and avoid that circumstance, then you've heeded his warning. Oh wow, heal. Phil, that is good that you've been healed a couple times. I know you've been having some problems. Well, I know of 2 different groups of cryptids here now that both keep a raven. At least it appears that they are keeping a raven. One group, the mixed group, very definitely looks like they're hand feeding a raven because there is an unusual roost spot. Ravens always roost 20, 30, 40 feet up. Even if they're playing with prey and they're eating a meal, they're up. To find a raven that roosts 4 foot off the ground means somebody's feeding it. It's sitting there next to somebody. So when you find behavior like that, a roost close to the ground with some sort of helper animal or helper bird, likely they're being fed, and it's likely one that's trained or is an assistant to a Bigfoot group or to a medicine person within that group. Yeah, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah, it's quite an experience, isn't it? Yep, I've heard of that. Buffalo people unreal. Um, wow, I've never seen one. Heard stories. Yep, Mitch, we've been getting quite a bit of rain here, and it's been pretty consistent. It'll be cloudy for a day, rain, 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 cloudy for a day, rain, rain, rain. So at least we get a little bit of a respite, and it's not been constant rain. Oh yeah, there's one group up here that really likes to eat falcon squab too, which is, I don't like that, but hey, that's their custom. I think they use them as some sort of medicine or high honor thing. Well, I have to go in with my Jeep, make sure that my undercarriage can actually handle putting a tow hitch on it. Uh, Recently, I found out that this particular 2003 had frame issues out of the factory gate. I talked to the dealership. They claim that everything has been fixed in the frame. I have an appointment, I think it's middle of next month. to get my estimate done for putting my trailer hitch on. Hopefully it's not going to involve anything with the frame. God dang, better not. I'll know more later. I'm still looking for, and I've pretty well decided I want a solid body A-frame pop-up. Still looking for one. I want one of the ones that's lower weight and smaller. Uh, you know, just because I don't want to have to tow a lot of shit around behind my vehicle. And I don't want what I am towing to outweigh my vehicle. My vehicle is 4,050 pounds, and I don't want to tow over a ton. That's my goal anyway. So I'm still trying to find the camper I want to buy. Yikes. No, thank you. I would not want to be bitten that many times by a freaking spider. I got stung 6 times by a black hornet once. That was enough for me. So when I was on my motorcycle and it flew down the neck of my leather coat. Boy, that was the quickest stop I ever made. Okay. Yep. Okay. Alright, Shizzle, there are definitely balancing their abilities with their natural environment, and that's something many others that call themselves outdoorsmen can't do. They're totally disconnected. Yeah, that is very, very true, unfortunately. There are a lot of people that they just haven't spent enough time out in the woods to understand how important it is sometimes just sit there and be quiet. That was my biggest training. Sit, be quiet, listen, you know, figure out what's in the woods with you. If you sit down long enough, 20, 30 minutes, the world comes back to life around you, and all of a sudden, you understand what you're sitting around. Yeah, that's true. Very true to Shizzle. I've been lucky enough to be in tune with as much as I am, but like any muscle, it's got to be exercised or you lose it. Yep, yep, very, very true. God dang. This thing being hypersensitive with its adjustments. Yep, man, bear, pig. I've heard about that. I've never seen one, but I've heard about them. Who knows? There are plenty of oddities probably in our past that we've never even found. I mean, we only have, what, maybe 5% of the fossil record uncovered, if that. Okay, well, if there are no more questions for me, I think I might wrap it up soon. It's been about an hour, 45 minutes. And, about the only thing I have my plans is as soon as the weather breaks more and I get some clear time out, since I am so close to where I was able to catch the other language bites up here in the woods, I think I might try to do some more of that. Yikes. I would not want to be hit by a dead wasp. We've got mason wasps around here that are bees. Those are bad enough. Thankfully, they usually just dive bomb at you. But man, if they hit you, it's not fun. Yep. True. Sit, listen, feel. Oh yeah, sometimes it's nice. Just go out and watch the ferns wake up while sitting on a moss-covered rock. Yeah, no kidding. Especially when they unfurl a little bit. You know, those pressed little shoots. If the dew is on them good, they'll sit there and they'll just kind of uncurl a little bit at a time. Yeah, they grow about as fast as bamboo. Part of the reason why I like my friend's bamboo stand. She's got elephant bamboo that's over 100 years old in her backyard, and I'll go over there and sit in her bamboo forest just to listen to it growing. When it's sunny and it's got a bit of moisture in the air, oh my gosh, you'll hear it popping as it grows. Okay, just here's a little. You said some of the languages and names sounded like Nordic or something in that extent. Do you think it would be a good idea to leave glyphs in those types of languages? You try it. Um, what was the one? Heitkleifer? Heitkleifer? It meant of the Sandy Barge, I think is the name of this. It's the meaning of the surname, and it was Finnish, if I remember right. I don't come across that sort of thing very often, where I get a really ancient name like that that's European. But um, if you've got something in the area that has a Nordic last name or a Finnish, Norwegian, anything over there, you might be able to get away with using runes to communicate with them. I don't know. I've never experimented with runes. I've only used kana and kanji. Uh, it might be something that's doable. Maybe try experimenting with it to see if you get a result or not. Yeah, I've never had them. When I'm trying to communicate with them, I've never really had a much of a negative interaction. Normally, what I'll get is either like when I'm out in the field and I'm trying to sound stuff out, and if I don't sound it out right, occasionally I will get corrected from the words. Um, if I'm, that's always a fun experience. Mispronounce something and then you get corrected. Or sometimes I have not gotten verbally corrected, but I've come back, a day or two later, and another kana will be placed with what I said instead of what the kana meant. I've seen that happen more than once. That happens in Bear Woman's area a lot. She'll she'll write. That group likes to write more than they talk. Might be because they're so inside the city, though. Probably don't want to give themselves away. So it's a possibility that they would communicate that way. There's a possibility. I don't know how much luck you'd have with it, but try it. The more we try, the more we'll understand. The more we'll know what works and what doesn't work to communicate with these guys. And like I said, I've never gotten anything thrown at me for trying to communicate with them. I've never gotten growled at in any real way. I've not had a negative experience trying to communicate with them. Occasionally I'll get corrected. Occasionally I'll get an extra piece of the puzzle. But no, I've not had anything negative happen to me. So I would say communication and trying to communicate is probably an easy, simple form that they're not going to freak out over it anyway. The whole knocking and hollering and screaming and stuff, I don't do that. So the times I have used that, you know, I know that a whoop means come help me. I understand that 3 knocks means there's an invader. I know that 2 knocks means friends. So I, you know, those communication mistakes don't get a bad reaction because I don't make communication mistakes that way. So to me, that it's not. I'm not out there to incite them to get a reaction out of them. I am there trying to learn where they are so I can document their behavior in their environment. I don't care about capturing what everybody else can capture. I'm more interested in what I can present about them that would give validity to their existence. Phil, I had trees pushed over 12 feet from me last foliage. Balsam, living tree, no wind. Oh, yeah. Yeah, my friends out on their property just had 4 trees come down like gunfire. Just bam in a row. When they looked up, there was something with different color eye shine than we'd ever seen out there before. Amber. And there's been no other activity from the friendly Bigfoot out there since those 4 trees came down. Hopefully, as soon as it holds, I can get out there and maybe find what pushed them over. But it's been a week already and it's rained twice, so unless something's pretty deeply seated in the ground, whatever might have been out there is probably going to be washed out. Oh yeah, no problem, Dishizzle. It's, I'd rather that this information, what little I know about the particular few here in this region, I'd rather that people understand them through the lore, understand what I kind of understand about them. Because there's a severe lack of knowledge because it's hard to get close to these things. It's hard to get them to interact with you in a way that you can repeat. That's why I'm really happy that they've been taking all the bananas and the pile of fruit repeatedly. That's good. The first time I was here trading with them, they were shy last year. I got some goodies, I got a carved stone, some stuff like that. But this year, they're far more willing to take what I offer. They're not giving me as much back. They're giving me more useful items in return, like the pine cones that could be used as a wick. And I know that when I wasn't here, there was no negative interaction between the individual here or them because there was a lack of food. All they did was just kept going to the individual's, you know, debris pile where they tossed their food scraps anyway. Same thing they were doing, when I came here last year. So the cryptid's behavior hasn't changed towards the person here. Hasn't gotten violent in any way, etc. Because there was no food over a period of time. No biggie to them. They don't care. It may not be the case with every cryptid out there. This particular group doesn't care. In my experience throughout my life, I've traded with a bunch of them. I've never had any of them freak out. I've never had them get upset because I didn't have food with me one day. I've never had them raid my coolers when I take them food. Uh, I've never had a negative experience that way. So I don't know what other people's experiences might have been or be. Because I've heard there are some stories out there where cryptids have been trading with somebody or been given stuff by one person and then that person passes away or new people move onto the property. Nobody tells the cryptid and there have been issues. I haven't had that. But that doesn't mean anything. And besides, I don't know all of the cryptids on the planet. I don't know how every one of them acts. Some of them might get very offended. They're probably just like us in mentality. This is the only time I had a negative experience was when we had a very harsh winter and a clan decided they needed my chickens to survive. Yeah. Makes me wonder what's going on with my friend's property. You know, we've been trading for 3.5 years with the group that is there. Then this occurrence just this last week, 2 weeks, um, with the trees coming down and a brand new eye shine. We haven't, I talked to my friend yesterday. I asked him if there was any activity from the normal group out there. He says no, they still hadn't heard anything. No sign of the normal group. So I'm like, okay, either somehow something else has been attracted to the area, something's been pushed into the area, because there has been some more logging up behind their property. Might have dislodged another group, and maybe their group has shifted over to give the other group of cryptids some space. The water hasn't been taken, so I don't know. Won't know until something happens, something else happens, or some clue as to where the normal group is comes about. Unreal, the way I look at these things is based on things I've experienced that are considered unbelievable. Could I myself say something else is unbelievable, even if it doesn't seem more outlandish than Bill, I had the extreme fear from a bear man about 40 years ago. I believe you. Yeah, yeah. Bearmen can be... I've not been that close to a bear person. The closest I've been is maybe 200 or 300 feet. They seem to be very direct. They don't mince around with how they present themselves to you. The individual that I'd seen, he was up in that tree ball, and I had asked if I could trade for some of the child's teeth that I think might have been his kid. Because I got a very clear, when I left, power knock. I looked back. He was sitting up out of the tree blind, out of his home. I could see him from like here up. And he told me, no, in English, no. And it was a very direct no. So I could imagine being really close to one. I felt a little like, it was a definite no. Okay, I better not push that. I would imagine being closer than a couple hundred feet would probably be pretty alarming. Yeah, I can believe that. The native lore, and the natives that I've talked to that are associated with bear people, they're no joke. They don't bullshit, and they are very direct. Oh yeah, there are quite a few different types of dog people around. Uh, we've got brown dog men here too. Didn't realize that. They actually might be a cynocephali. Um, so you got two major types, like if you want to split species. You've got dogmen that have a dog leg and a foot, where they toe tip. They stand up on their toes. And then you have the cynocephaly, which has a human leg with a primate-like foot. And that's your biggest difference between the two major species. Species difference that's visual. Like the CCTV, I think, camera at one of the zoos that caught a dog man walking by. In, I think it was Arizona or New Mexico or something. Someplace down there, if I remember right, a couple of years ago. And people were like, well, it doesn't have a dog's back legs. I'm like, well, it's because it's probably a cynocephaly. Cynocephaly are slightly shorter, supposedly. They're about 6.5, 6 foot tall, and they have a human-like foot instead of a dog-like foot. So that might be the difference, and that might be one characteristic that could be utilized to distinguish differences. Especially in areas where you've got different types, because I didn't realize we had brown dogmen in this area until this last summer when I caught pictures of a couple of brown dogmen. And the one that I got to see more or less standing, yeah, he was maybe 120, 130 feet away from me. Turned, clicked a picture of him because I asked him, what do you think of people when I saw him? And he flew me the bird. He definitely looked like he had the wider hip bracket, because that was something my native grandmother claimed, that the cynocephaly, the one that has human foot, has a much wider looking hip bracket. They've got an unusual wide space between their legs, is how she described it. And that's what that particular brown dog man looked like to me, so he might actually be a cynocephaly. So I don't know what your dog men are like up there, but there are several different types. So make note, if you've got something that's unusual, please share. There might be some lore about it. Huh. I might be a cynocephaly. That sounds very much like a cynocephaly unreal. Yep. You are correct with that description, Phil, of bear man has large pad feet, like black bear on the front, a longer rear track, and then front. Yeah, they do. And they will switch back and forth. They'll go from fours to upright and from upright to fours. Now, we're at 2 hours, guys. Unless you have more questions, I think I'm going to head out and go have some dinner. It was around 6 foot, 6'2" maybe. It walked slow and calm, not threatening, just his face seemed threatening. Yeah, they can have a pretty gnarly snarl on some of them. I have a capture of one from this summer in my posts section. It's a brown dog man up underneath some brush at the edge of a stream, and he is definitely snarly in the face. Might want to find that picture, see if it looks anything like the one that you found or saw. That's the other thing, if any of those pictures in my posts look like anything you've ever seen, let me know that you've seen something like it. Because some of the things I've taken pictures of this last summer, I don't have lore about. A couple of them. I got one kind of balloon head looking thing that seems to be on all fours. I have no idea what it is. I know there's probably somebody out there that knows some lore about it or has some information or seen one like it, but I don't know anything about it. I don't have any lore about it. Yeah, no problem. Oh, of course, Phil. Keep up. Stay positive. Keep educating us. I will do my best to help out. All right, guys. You have a great one, and I hope you all have a great holiday season. Yeah, thank you. I'm so glad that you guys are my supporters and my subscribers. I really appreciate y'all, and hope to bring you some more stuff soon. As soon as I can get back out when there's a good day to film on it. It's not, either too overcast, it's so can't get anything to come out right. But otherwise, I'll keep up with posting a little bit about the trade that's going on, see if I can come up with anything as a gift back. Otherwise, I guess my trade's going to just be one way. But that's alright. I don't mind helping them. And I don't mind hearing what's in the background around here either. I just wish I had some way of capturing it. Alright, everyone. Thank you. I appreciate you all. And I'll see you next Saturday. Take care, everyone. Hope you guys have a great new year. Ginkgo Factory. Awesome. You have a good one, guys. Thank you so much.